गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोविंद हरे गोपाल हरे नंदलाल हरे श्री कृष्ण हरे
श्री कृष्ण हरे
श्री कृष्ण हरे
गोपाल हरे
गोपाल हरे
नंदलाल हरे
नंदलाल हरे
श्री वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय।
ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् Hey, everyone. Happy Gita Jayanti to all of you. We celebrated yesterday as well. I think some of you were there. It was very nice. Next year, hopefully, everyone can join. All right. So we're going to start with, we'll chant from chapter 2, verse 54. Just chant about 3 verses together. Okay. Everyone's ready? Arjuna Uvacha स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्तस्य केशव स्थितधि किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम् Together. स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधि किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम् श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते Together. प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सर्वेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते together दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते. Wonderful. So, as this is very nice because for Gita Jayanti, we are reflecting on Sthita Prajna, that one who has steady wisdom. This was our last session, right? Last week you had, I know, our Puja Guruji's practical tips on Gita. That's such a nice video. I hope you all enjoyed that. And so now we are catching back on chapter 2. So this section, Bhagavan is speaking about man of steady wisdom. Sthita dhi. Dhi has many meanings. Dhi can mean intellect. It can also mean understanding, right? All of these are true at one and the same time. So one whose understanding is extremely fixed, who's very clear, then their intellect also has crystal clear sharpness. It knows. It is not beset by doubts. It is fixed. So for us, we kind of shift back and forth. Sometimes we are very clear about what we need to do. Sometimes we are very clear that we are unclear. Sometimes that the opposite is there. We're very sure I'm not sure what to do. Man of steady wisdom, his wisdom is fixed. Now, another word that Bhagavan Bhashyakar uses, that is Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya, is the word muni. Muni. Muni is another word for sage. But the meaning of muni is given in Shastra. It is very interesting. It is mananat shilaha iti munihi. One whose shila, disposition, is to be in mananam all the time. Due to the disposition for mananam. Mananam means to go on repeatedly thinking, think deeper, look deeper. The one who has that tendency of habit is called a muni. Mananat Shilaha. Shilaha means their disposition. No? Some people, we know, their disposition is to be very sunny, very cheerful all the time. Some people, by disposition, they're very cranky all the time. Oscar the Grouch. You say you can teach Oscar some things, you're so grouchy. Well, different disposition. So Muni is one who, by disposition, they are deep thinkers. They don't just take. So we also have to remember what was the phrase last class we were talking about. Siddhakasya lakshanani, sadhakasya sadhanani. The qualities of the realized one, fixed one, become our spiritual practices. So when we say the Muni has this tendency, we should also try to develop that. Has the tendency for deep thinking and reflection. Does not take what is simply apparent to be the reality. We also should have that disposition. Then what? In that verse 55, Bhagavan says, Prajahati yada kaman. Prajahati, pra means very well. We talked about that last time. Prakarshena jahati, dropping. He has completely and totally dropped sarvan kaman, all the desires from the mind. There's nothing lingering. Sometimes we have lingering desires, they still stick around. For him, everything is very clear. How is that? Let us think a little bit on that. See, there might be an object that we are extremely fascinated by, But so that object is there in front of us. Say, sometimes people, right now, World Cup is going on. World Cup for soccer, football. So there are some people, they are extremely fascinated by it. That is their favorite thing. They love that. Then there might be another person who cannot stand sports. Oh, this again. It's going to be on TV in our house for the next 2 weeks. Really, I don't know how long it goes. So, some length of time. It's so frustrating to hear it on all the time and the announcer. So, they have deep aversion to it. Then there's a third person to whom it is neutral. Whether it is on or off, they don't mind. One and the same time, all three dispositions are possible in the same household. So then what do we see? It is not the object that brings the joy, but our response to that object in within us, our own likes and dislikes that make that object of value. So the Muni sees that same thing. He is able to deeply think, oh, see how all people have different response to same object. That means happiness is not in the object, happiness is in the person. Therefore, my happiness, I am not going to attach it to any objects. So, even from that depth of thinking, so many karmas are dropped. We can see that, right? So many desires easily are dropped. So, this is, we don't get overly attached to anything, neither do we get overly dejected by any circumstance. This is that habit of mananam that is given, huh? And prajahati, that word indicating the strength of that response. Why is that word important? Because it is said in the Bhashya that this is accomplished by the Muni. He doesn't just wake up one day and say, oh, I guess I don't have any more desires. It would be nice if that's the way things worked. But Prajahati means he has put in great effort. And that means that the seeker also has to put in effort. We have to put in effort. It doesn't just happen. Huh? We were talking about that in our teachers' meeting today, that some things, small things, we can have small frustration. Okay. So the example was, I like my coffee or whatever, rasam, but coffee more actually possibly common. I like my coffee to be piping hot. So I went to the coffee shop and I have paid now $4 for this coffee and they gave it to me, but it is not piping hot the way I like it. So I get frustrated. I don't, some people even get very frustrated, but I just little frustrated, little pinprick has happened. That is one. But then there can be another very much stronger response. We're going to see in the next verse. Vita raga bhaya krodha. This Muni is one who he does not have krodha, anger. So we run the gamut from small frustrations to someone has scratched my car. I bought a new Tesla and this thing is worth so much money. I don't even know. Well, now I don't know how much. Tesla is going through some trouble. But I don't know how much I spent on this car. I can't believe someone scratched it. So then Krodha can be very great also. All of this is attached to our attachment. So Muni is one who has been able to reflect on this. Look at the way that I respond to things. Do they require this strength of emotion, or is it better to be neutral, observe, and then to respond appropriately? Instead of emotionally, but rather with understanding. So, this is the key here. That is stitadhi. This is how we can practice. But Muni has put forth great effort, and by that great effort, has able to relinquish all of these desires. See, sometimes we see someone like a great Ramana Maharshi. He was young, he was a 9-year-old boy, and already that desire to drop everything was there. He dropped everything from very young age. It is said he borrowed some paisa from his, I think, either uncle or brother, right? To get some, he said, I need something for school. So he borrowed that paisa. He used that money to buy train ticket to go to Arunachalam, that mountain. And whatever money was remaining after buying that train ticket, when he got off at that Arunachala, he just dropped it into that one lake there, pond. And he went into the mountains and went into samadhi. That was for him. We might see that and say, oh, but he did not have to put forth great yatna. But this jiva, remember, jiva many lifetimes also. Great effort has been put to get to that place. So we also should think Let me practice this. These soccer players, football players, in that fitness magazine, have you seen on the cover? They'll have that, what is my diet? This is how many calories we take, how much protein powder, all of these things. We do so much study of those things. But in our tradition, the example on the, we don't have that magazine cover. We have Amar Chitrakatha or something, right? Those examples that are given to us are those who do not conquer externally, but rather conquer internally. All the internal circumstances. In especially in the West, we tend to focus very much on conquering external standards. But the same people that have conquered everything externally, we see it falls apart for them only because of internal circumstances. Huh? We're seeing that every day. So, one who has been able to put forth that effort, that one who also Atman evatmana tushtaha. There's one beautiful bhajan, it goes, Atma Rama Ananda Ramana. We don't, sometimes we don't pay attention to those words. Atma Rama. Rama here comes from the Sanskritam, that root. The name for Bhagavan Shri Rama comes from that root. Ram means to revel. One who is reveling, this great Bhagavan Shri Rama, that Lord, he is the one reveling in Atma, self, his own self. This is actually all linked together. See, that Muni is totally content in himself, by himself. Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. One who rejoices. I realize these objects are not what brings me joy. I am the source of all joy. Therefore, he's always reveling in that. That is what is meant here. Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. Then Sthita Prajna Starochyate. That is the one who is called as Sthita Prajna. And then we see some more elaboration is given in verse 56. Okay. Dukkeshu anudvigna manaha. So here are some other ways to understand. Okay. One who has dropped these desires, what is the state of that mindset? Huh? Quite amazing. They are in dukkha. In dukkha, anudvigna manaha. That mind does not become very agitated in sorrows. So we might say, if he is, sometimes we like to look for what is the contradiction. If we say he is given up all desires, how can he be experiencing sorrow? So the explanation is, in this one we say, that which would commonly bring sorrow to someone, he does not become upset. And by the same coin, vigata sprihaha sukheshu. He does not become spruha. Spruha means attached or does not cling. Hmm? There's that spruha comes from another one root, the same root from which it's called snih. Snih also becomes sneha. You know that sometimes we name sneha. Sneha means affection or, love, like that. So it also changes in there's one form of the word, uh, it transforms into snigdha. Snigdha means like oily. Snigdha is another word for oily substances. It's quite in Sanskritam is fascinating. They all have a interrelationship. You know what that means? Oil clings to things. Have you noticed that? If you cook with oil and it splatters, and then that layers on top of itself, very hard to scrub out. You notice that? It is easy to scrub other things, but you need heavy duty cleaning materials to get out oil. Other things with a little water you can wipe and it'll come off. So snigdha, oiliness, it means that which clings. So sneha or affection means to cling to something. That is what we mean by affection, actually. So he is vigata spruha, means he does not have that spruha, snigdha, sneha. He does not experience that sense of clinging to even a good circumstance. We might say, oh, does that mean he is not happy when good things happen? No, no. He is always happy. So when something that normally would make someone extremely happy, he's neutral there also. Because remember, not that he is, sometimes we think, oh, he's like robot. Like the Roomba is there. He must be like that Roomba. Roomba has no emotions. It just does its thing. No, he is ever happy. The circumstance does not determine his inner state. That's what it means. So, in when we were young, they used to have. I don't know if you remember, but the big thing at that time was this Ed McMahon. He had that big check. Do you all remember? He used to have the "You've won the jackpot." Yeah, that's what it was. See, everyone remembers. So in the commercial, he used to knock on the door, and then the person they would open their door and Ed McMahon, he has that check for me, and then they get so happy. That's what they used to. And then every time someone knocks on your door, you think maybe it's him. It's never him, okay? So that's the truth. But that person, then they start to cry and jump, and so he does not ever get like that. Neither does he become so upset when something happens. Hmm? Unudna unudvignamanaha sukheshu vigata sprahah. And he is one who has gone beyond what? Vita, Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. These are actually, Vita means to go beyond, and these three are like, they are chain effect, they are related to each other. So, what is it? Raga means great affection or attachment. Or likes, actually, like. The more we like something, the more we develop one attachment to it. Then, because we are attached to it, there is some bhaya, some fear, uncertainty, what is called as insecurity. What if it goes away? Oh, I like this thing so much. That other person wants it. What if they get it before I do? All this fear comes. Then, as that, as much in proportion to our attachment to it, so much we have fear that it might be lost or harmed in some way. As much fear that we have, so much anger is aroused if something comes in the way of it. We were talking about this also. The best example to think of is, have you ever seen slingshot? The kids used to, I think in India you all must have played when you were kids. You know, that sometimes they used to talk about pelting mango in the island. They want to get the mango, they have to take the slingshot and hit it. So, as much tension as is put in the rubber band, as much as you pull back, right? That is how far that stone will go. So, if it's very weak, it'll just fall out. But if you pull it back with the proper aim, the farther you create the tension, the farther the distance of that stone will go. So, the more attachment we have to something, that much tension we are putting on that object, between me and that object. And when something comes in the way, see, the same release happens, right? That emotion gets released from us so strong in response. Huh? Krodha is given, but also deep depression also is the flip side of that. So, how do we know which one? When the thing we want, when it gets blocked by someone or something that is just a natural, normal occurrence, that causes anger. When it is blocked by someone reverential or some circumstance greater than what we think we have control over, instead of krodha, it becomes depression. Hmm? But both are implied. Meaning, the reaction that we have is as strong as our attachment. So much fear we have, so much response we will have. That is why small thing will create small impact. Big attachment, big impact. But for the wise one, he has that balance. Okay? Sthita dhihi munihi uchyate. Remember, we said Muni is one who thinks deeply. Now we will see these days that habit of deep thinking is actually being slowly weeded out of the personality. Because people are so quick to respond to every situation without nuance, because they are not neutral first. Neutrality is very important. First, we see what has happened, then we must respond appropriately. But people hair trigger kind of, uh, quickly they get angry, quickly they get upset. This is why this because this is lacking now actually. Now there was one fox and a turtle. So the fox found that turtle when it was on the land. He bit into it. Huh? And what does the turtle do? When something is threatening, he'll pull back all of the limbs. So the fox is biting and he's not able to crack that shell. So then the turtle from inside the shell, he says, no, the reason why you can't crack is because this shell is very hard. It's too dry. If you put me in the water and let me soak for a little bit, then I'll be soft. Then you can bite. And that fox said, oh, that's a good idea. He put the turtle in the water, turtle swam off. He got outfoxed. That's what happened. Sometimes we don't take the time to think. How can we come up with creative solution to what is happening? You know, that emotion overrides. When Muni has that ability to put a pause on the emotions and not let it overpower. That is the main thing. And the other thing to note is, especially for children, for their development, it is very important that we develop this kind of creative problem solving in them. I've seen how much we have to kind of baby them for every little thing, because we're so worried. Oh, what that teacher once, she was trying to teach the child to climb up the ladder. So she had to explain, okay, you have to take this hand and you have to put it on the next rung. Okay, put one hand. Now, what do I do? Now, foot also must come behind. Okay, okay, foot. Then what? No, now the next hand. So, like that, had to help all the way to get to the top. So, finally, the child reached the top of the ladder. Then she said, okay, now. Then he started to cry. He said, what happened? He said, I don't know how to get down now. You taught me how to climb up the ladder. You have not taught me how to come down. So, this is kind of a robotic sort of thinking where everything needs to be explained, overly explained. Huh? Some things, when the mind has a natural sense of retention or natural sense of observation, that mind is able to come up with its own solution, come up with its own solution on the spot. So what happens is the best way to develop this in our kids. I'm I'm telling you this from my own personal experience because I also didn't know how to do a lot of things. Is seva. Some seva. At home, they should be doing seva. In their, if they have that bhava to do some service, seva means to serve. If they have that seva bhav and get involved in different service, you will find they will blossom so much. You know, sometimes I have seen certain kids, they were shy or they were a little unsure of themselves. I am thinking of one particular child, he was there in the ashram. I saw great difference in the child when he started going to scouts. He started going to that scout program. The scouts gave him a community. They encouraged a lot of community service projects. And the moment they started to get themselves involved, he developed so much self confidence that whatever the situation is, I can respond to it. No one, the teacher is not always going to be there, parents are not always going to be there. That flexibility in thinking is very important. Huh? So at home, if we don't give kids the opportunity to wash the dishes, to pick up their clothes, to run the even the laundry once in a while, even young children, give them that opportunity. Let them stand with you. See how you cook. Now you have eaten the food. Now you must help wash the pots. All of these things are part and parcel of their development. Hmm? And part and parcel of our development also. A lot of times we like to outsource these tasks, but they help us. This sadhana being, so we were talking about it. What about when I feel my anger is justified? Don't I deserve to get angry that time? Hmm? In the house, especially with spouse or with kids, a lot of this question can come up. Their most cause of frustration is ones who are closest to us. So this ability to be still, this ability to imbibe these qualities, very important, very, very helpful. Mm, okay. So now, because our assembly went a little bit late, generally our session goes till 45, and then, but then adult discussion goes till 12. Okay, good. So now at least we can start on the questions, and then you will get a chance to discuss further in the next class. Okay. So those discussion questions we will send. We'll have some 10 minutes. Sorry, it went a little bit longer, but without it, it'll be hard to discuss the questions. That's why I wanted to explain. Okay. So after this, we'll have adult study group and continue. Not next week, but on the 18th, we'll continue. Okay? ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ अरविंद जी